The first spiritual gift of tongues that we see is here in Acts chapter 2. It's the very first time that we see tongues happen. It's the very first instance of it. It shows up, and what it is it is a spontaneous fluency in another earthly language that you yourself do not know. Scripture tells us this kind of tongue is a sign for unbelievers. That's what it was here in Acts 2, right? Is they began to speak in tongues. It was not the fact that they were speaking in tongues. The tongue itself was a sign that something supernatural was happening, because these people should not know all these languages. It was a supernatural sign. It was this, and in fact, it is reinforced by the fact that right after this event, Peter steps up and preaches to the crowd, and 3,000 people give their lives to Jesus that day because they had seen something they cannot explain. It pointed to them something that God had told about many years before through the prophet Joel. Now, next week, we're going to talk a little bit more about it. We'll talk about a lot of these gifts over the course of the next few weeks. We're going to talk, I'm going to share a story with you next week that is mind-boggling about this particular gift, this particular version of tongues and how it works. But I'll just say this, it is still alive and well today. The second gift of tongues, so the first one is spontaneous fluency. The second gift is found in 1 Corinthians 14. Verse 2 and verse 4 talks about it. This particular gift of tongues is not meant to be understood by anyone except God. It is not an earthly language that you don't know. It is a heavenly language that nobody here on earth knows. It is basically, figure it like a one-way communication, a direct channel to God that bypasses distraction, that bypasses, think about it like in military terms, think about it like sending an encrypted signal, right? That we've got a code that we're sending here that the enemy can't pick up on. It is a direct connection to God where your soul begins to pray to God unencumbered by anything else. Let me ask you, have you ever had a time where you wanted to pray and you knew what you wanted to say and you knew how you felt, but you couldn't quite figure out how to say it? Or you couldn't quite figure out how to word it. And so as you're praying, there is this struggle happening to be able to communicate with God because your own limitations are getting in your way. Have you experienced that before? This gift is for that purpose, is it bypasses all of that. It allows your heart, your soul, to communicate directly with God. It bypasses distraction. There are so many times where I have been able to pray, and as I'm praying, and I'm having such a hard time, and I'm distracted, and I've got a million things on my mind. And as I'm praying, something changes, and this prayer language begins, and as soon as it does, I feel a direct connection to God, like I've been praying in English without distractions. The connection is there now in a different way. And I leave that prayer feeling more faith, feeling encouraged. It's amazing what happens. And Paul actually describes it like this. He who prays in a tongue edifies himself, strengthens himself. That's how Paul describes it. The third gift of tongues is also found in 1 Corinthians 14, verse 5. And this tongue is actually half of a pair of gifts. In other words, it comes in twos. This gift is paired with another spiritual gift called interpretation. So the first gift is spontaneous fluency. It is a sign for unbelievers. That's the target, to target people who do not know Jesus. They don't believe. The second gift is a private prayer language that only God understands. Its target, its beneficiary is yourself. It's meant to edify and strengthen yourself. But the third type is meant to be interpreted. It is a message spoken in tongues to the church that then has another person or the same person with a gift of interpretation that will then interpret. Not that they understand it immediately, but they are given the interpretation through the Spirit.